Hello, welcome back to my studio. Today I'm going to be telling you about something that's really important if you want to paint powerful paintings. It's all about getting the key to your painting. Stick around and watch what I mean. Or maybe you've heard the term that painting has been painted in a high key or a low key. It sounds kind of like music perhaps, and a lot of the associations with painting actually make sense when you compare them to music. When we talk about high key in a painting, it's easier for me to actually show you what this means. So let's have a look at this painting. Now this is painted in a high key, and what that really means is it's very light. Right, there's few darks in this painting. All the colors are very well lit. It is light. And a painting in a low key looks kind of like this. There's a lot of darks. The majority of the colors fall within the dark range. So that's low key. I like the term key for a painting because it also associates the idea of unlocking something. So if you figure out the key to your painting, when you look at a scene or look at a photo reference perhaps, and ask yourself, what's the key to this painting? What you're really talking about is the lights and the darks. And we call those lights and darks values. Right? What is the value of the painting is really the essence. And if you want to know what values means, just think of black and white photography. All those darks and grays and whites, all of that falls within the idea of values, the lightness or darkness of colors. And in black and white photographs, that's what you see very clearly. And it still makes a great picture. So we want to get the values right. Now, let's have a look at how to measure these values. And for that, some very clever person came up with a scale of lights and darks called the Munsell value scale. Sometimes values are referred to as tones, and I don't particularly like that term, but if somebody is talking about tones, they're talking really about values, the lightness or darkness. Now a high key painting is in this range from the very lights, probably within these 4 values over here, because most landscapes are 4 values. Whereas a low key painting will be probably somewhere around here. There may be 1 or 2 lights, but generally we're in this range. And I like to paint paintings in low key because 3 darks and a light emphasizes the light. All right, so I use the darks to emphasize light. Now I'm going to show you a few master examples looking at some of the Impressionists to give you a good idea of what key the painting was done in. And I'm going to try and break that down into the main values for you with some paint, and you'll be able to get a stronger idea of what makes a painting what it is. So unlock the key to your painting means to understand the values. You can decide what range of values you want to use. Right, let's have a look at a few examples and a practical demo where this idea may become a lot clearer to you. So let's take a look at the father of Impressionism himself, some of the paintings of Claude Monet. Just going to page through a few of his paintings. Now, for instance, this one here, if you even close your eyes just a little, sort of halfway, and squint at this a bit, you can see all of the greens pretty much are dark, and the white of the dress is in fact a sort of middle value. So somewhere in between over here, and then the darks will be sort of in this range. It's fairly evenly balanced painting. And this one, pretty much all high key. A really attractive painting, but all fairly light color. This one here, for instance, typical of a high key painting, all pretty much in the light value range of colors, and actually quite difficult to distinguish. If you squint a little, you can see the land mass over here, you can see the sky, but details and individual shapes quite difficult to pick out. And he's done it through using color temperature variation. And this one, very similar as well. Okay, I'm going to select this painting, also a high key painting, and we're just going to get the main mass shapes of it and try and understand its value plan and how this high key painting could perhaps be changed into a low key painting as well. I'm going to work pretty much in monochrome and just set out the values in general. So let's mix up a dark with burnt sienna and ultramarine, and then bring in some light. I'm going to start by just dividing up the composition a bit. So the darkest darks in the original painting will be in the shadow of the rocks and cliff, but for the most part the painting is made up of light value. Other than those shadows, it's pretty much all lights, and in fact the darkest dark thereafter is going to be the distant sea, but this distant sea is obviously still substantially lighter than that. So if you start looking at your value scale, squinting a bit, and you can see that that dark is probably here in the number 3 value, and to get a light value there, lighter than that, you'd be probably looking at up to a number 5 over here. And that way you can compare and just get an idea. Could even be a touch lighter. And it follows a gradation. Even lighter still. Down here it's almost the same value as the grass in the foreground. There'll be little to distinguish that. It gets slightly darker as we move towards the horizon. And then we've got the sky, which is pretty light. And it must be lighter than the sea because that is the area where the light is coming from. In other words, the sunlight is coming from the sky, and in general the sky will be the lightest light. And it gets a bit darker as it moves higher up into the darker blues. And then this grass is also quite high key, quite bright, getting a lot of light. So this has to be lighter than that distant C, quite substantially. Slightly darker up here. Looks like it's at an angle, therefore not getting quite as much light on it. And for the rest, this grass is all pretty light. Slightly lighter than this seawater as well. Being closer to us, it's getting more light. If you squint, it's actually quite difficult to see the difference between this and the sea. But because the grass has got lots of color, flowers and things like that, it will stand out and come forward. So that's a pretty value plan of a high key painting. And if you worked out your values, you would be in the range of 8, 9, 7, and a shadow in the region of 4 or 5, but very small. So basically 4 values, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now if we did the same thing, but changed the key to a darker value range. So let's draw this out again quickly. Okay, so what we're going to do now, we're going to change the value key into a darker range and try and see where that takes us. Okay, so that's pretty dark. I think we just need to lighten it just a bit more. Then into our darkest darks, the shadows, we can take them down further. All right, now the landscape itself, the grass, getting a lot less light from the sky, ambient light, so it's going to be darker. All right, so a much more somber scene, low key, overcast. This one very bright, very sunny, and high key. And it's simply by shifting our values arrangement into this range for here, and over here the light range. Now if this whole lesson about values is still confusing and you want to learn more about it, or you really like the idea and want to dive into it some more, have a look at the free course I've got up here. It's also a good introduction to how I go about understanding and getting into the whole value scheme of a scene before I even touch the paint. And then you can go into it further with me if you want. Now, if this was interesting to you and you learned something new, please give this video a like. Now, if you haven't subscribed yet, do that now. Just hit the button below, and if you hit the notification bell, you'll be notified of my next video as well. So you won't miss out anything, and you'll keep learning about painting. Well, that was a fun video for me to do, and until next time, cheers for now.